War has shaped civilizations, defined borders, and determined the fate of nations. Since the dawn of history, conflict has been the ultimate test of power, resilience, and ambition. But among the countless battles fought across millennia, some wars stand out as turning points, struggles so significant that they changed the very trajectory of humanity. And today, you and I are going to travel across time and rediscover the 5 most important wars in history. Wars that redefined empires, shattered old orders, and forged the world we live in today. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this journey through history is just the beginning, and you don't want to miss the next chapters. The story of war is as old as humanity itself, but as the historian John Keegan once said in his classic, "The face of battle war is not just a matter of soldiers and tactics. It is a mirror of society itself." And nowhere is this more evident than in the first great war we'll examine. The Greco-Persian Wars, fought between 499 and 449 BC. Imagine the colossal Persian Empire, stretching from Asia Minor to the banks of the Indus River, clashing with the tiny but fiercely independent city-states of Greece. At first glance, the Persians had everything in their favor: manpower, resources, and the prestige of empire. Yet, at Marathon, at Thermopylae, and later at the Greeks proved that determination and tactical ingenuity could defy overwhelming odds. Herodotus, the so-called father of history, famously chronicled these wars, giving us timeless tales of heroism. Leonidas and his 300 Spartans holding the pass, Themistocles deceiving and outmaneuvering the Persians at sea. The result of these wars was not only a Greek victory, but the survival of a culture that would give birth to democracy, philosophy, and Western civilization itself. As historian Victor Davis Hansen puts it in a war like no other, had the Persians triumphed, the ideals of freedom, rationalism, and civic participation might never have emerged from the shores of Greece. We fast forward nearly 1,000 years to another epic struggle. The Punic Wars, fought between Rome and Carthage from 264 to 146 BC. These wars were not just a clash of armies. They were a contest for dominance of the Mediterranean world. Rome, an upstart republic hungry for expansion, faced Carthage, a wealthy maritime power with a formidable navy and the genius of generals like Hannibal Barca. Few stories in military history are as thrilling as Hannibal's march across the Alps, with elephants striking terror into the heart of Rome. As the historian Polybius described, Hannibal's audacity was unparalleled, and for years he seemed unstoppable, winning victories at Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and canny battles still studied in military academies today. Yet Rome, relentless and unyielding, adapted. The general Scipio Africanus carried the war into Africa and finally broke Carthage's power at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. The Punic Wars transformed Rome from a regional republic into a Mediterranean superpower. Historian Adrian Goldsworthy in The Fall of Carthage observed that Rome won not because it was always victorious, but because it refused to give up. That lesson in perseverance still echoes across history. The third war we cannot overlook is the 100 Years' War, 1337 to 1453, a conflict that reshaped medieval Europe and the very concept of nationhood. This wasn't just a feud between kings of England and France over territory and dynastic claims. It was the crucible in which modern identities began to form. From the Longbowmen at Agincourt, who showed how common soldiers could decide the fate of kings, to the rise of Joan of Arc, who became the symbol of French resistance and divine destiny, the war redefined power. Barbara Tuchman, in her Pulitzer-winning A Distant Mirror, notes how the 100 Years' War revealed the tensions of an age in transition. When feudalism began to give way to centralized monarchies, the war's outcome was decisive. France emerged as a unified kingdom, while England was pushed toward maritime expansion, setting the stage for its later empire. Moreover, the 100 Years' War accelerated military innovation. Gunpowder, artillery, and professional armies began to replace knights and castles, marking the dawn of a new era of warfare. But perhaps no war altered the course of the modern world more profoundly than the Napoleonic Wars, 1803 to 1815. At the heart of Europe stood Napoleon Bonaparte, a man who rose from obscurity to command empires. His campaigns spread not only devastation, but also the revolutionary ideals of liberty, equality, and nationalism. From Austerlitz, where he achieved one of the greatest tactical masterpieces in history, to where he finally met his downfall at the hands of Wellington and Blucher. Napoleon reshaped the map of Europe again and again. Historian Andrew Roberts, in Napoleon, A Life, explains that Napoleon's genius lay in his ability to inspire men to endure to march further and fight harder than anyone else thought possible. Yet the Napoleonic Wars were more than the story of one man. They restructured Europe, leading to the Congress of Vienna, and a century-long balance of power that influenced global politics. They also exported ideas, nationalism, codified laws, and meritocracy that fueled both liberation and conflict for generations. Finally, the last war we must discuss is one whose echoes still haunt us. The Second World War in 1939 to 1945. This was not merely a war of nations. It was a war of ideologies. Democracy against fascism, freedom against tyranny, civilization against annihilation. With more than 70 million dead, it remains the deadliest conflict in human history. Winston Churchill called it the greatest and most terrible war ever seen by mankind, and his words ring true. From the Blitzkrieg that crushed Poland and France, to the titanic struggles at Stalingrad and Midway, to the final battles in Berlin, and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, World War II demonstrated both the heights of human courage and the depths of human cruelty. Historian Anthony Beevor in the Second World War reminds us that this was a conflict fought on an unimaginable scale, a global conflagration that tested the limits of endurance, morality, and survival. Out of its ashes came not only the United Nations and a new world order, but also the Cold War, a shadow that shaped the second half of the 20th century. So what do these 5 wars have in common? They weren't just about territory or kings. They were about survival, ideas, and transformations that changed everything. The birth of democracy in Greece, the rise of Rome, the forging of national identities in Europe, the spread of revolutionary ideals through Napoleon, and the existential struggle of the modern world in World War II. Each of these wars, in its own way, forced humanity to confront its limits and to redefine what it meant to fight, to endure, and to rebuild. If history teaches us anything, it's that wars are never isolated events. They ripple forward, shaping generations to come. And that's why understanding the Mayasenti, just about the past, it's about the present and the future. So, if you want to keep uncovering the hidden lessons of history's greatest struggles, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anyone who loves history as much as you do. Because the wars may be over, but the stories and their lessons are eternal.